A black car rolls to a stop outside a crumbling apartment building. The engine hums low. A driver steps out and holds the door open for no one important. Just a woman in a faded uniform, still smelling like bleach and grocery store floors. 3 days earlier, that same woman had exactly $3 to her name. Her name is Maya Reyes, 26 years old, a college degree gathering dust in a drawer, 2 years spent mopping floors at a grocery store, just to keep the lights on. And her mother's medication paid for. She never imagined that $3 money she needed for her mother's pain pills that very night would end up changing everything. Not just her life. An entire company would learn her name and never forget it. But on that ordinary Tuesday morning, Maya didn't know any of that yet. She just saw an old woman standing at a register, embarrassed, empty-handed, and out of options. And Maya made a choice that would cost her everything and give her something she never expected in return. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that flat, tired glow that made everyone look a little more exhausted than they already were. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind that blurred into every other Tuesday morning at harvest market carts squeaking, registers beeping, the smell of rotisserie chicken drifting from the deli counter. Maya Reyes pushed her mop bucket past aisle 6, her sneakers squeaking softly against the tile. She'd been on shift since 5 in the morning. Her back ached. Her hands were raw from the cleaning chemicals. But none of that mattered right now. Because up ahead, at register number 3, something was happening. An elderly woman stood frozen at the counter, a single loaf of bread in front of her. Her hands trembled as she patted down the pockets of her coat, searching for something that wasn't there. "Ma'am, if you can't pay, you need to step aside," the cashier said, not even bothering to lower her voice. "There are other customers waiting." "I'm so sorry," the old woman whispered. "I know I have my wallet. I must have left it at home. Please, just give me a moment. I've already given you 3 minutes." The cashier snapped. "If you don't have money, I need you to return the bread and let the next customer through." Behind her, a man muttered just loud enough to be heard, probably trying to get something for free. A woman near the magazine rack rolled her eyes. "Shouldn't shop if you can't pay. Wasting everyone's time." Maya stopped pushing her bucket. She watched the old woman's face, not angry, not even embarrassed anymore. Just hollow, like someone who had already accepted that this was how the world was going to treat her today. Maya thought about walking past. It wasn't her business. She wasn't even supposed to be near the registers. She was supposed to be mopping the floor by the frozen aisle. And in her pocket, folded twice, were the only $3 she had left until Friday. Money she'd set aside carefully, deliberately for her mother's pain medication, due to run out that very night. $3. That was the whole math of her week. But she found herself walking toward the register anyway. "Miss," Maya said, stepping up beside the old woman. "How much is the bread?" The cashier blinked, thrown off. "It's $3.50. Why, Maya was already pulling the crumpled bills from her pocket. "Here." The old woman turned to her, eyes wide with disbelief. "Are you serious?" "Very," Maya said, and something in her voice was steady. Certain, the kind of certainty that surprises even the person saying it. She placed the money on the counter. "Here you go." "Ma'am." For a moment, nobody spoke. The cashier looked down at the bills like she'd never seen anyone hand over cash so easily. And yet so painfully. The old woman didn't move at first. She just studied Maya's face, searching for some hidden motive, some angle, finding none. "Young lady," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, "you don't even know me." Maya shrugged, like it was the simplest thing in the world. "I know you're hungry. And I know that nobody should have to feel ashamed because they forgot their wallet. The old woman's eyes glistened. She reached out and gently took Maya's hand, holding it for a moment longer than a stranger normally would. "What's your name?" she asked. "Andrea's actually—" Maya caught herself, smiling faintly. "Maya? Maya Reyes." The old woman repeated it slowly, like she was memorizing something precious. "Maya Reyes. I will never forget that name. Never." And then, just like that, she picked up her bread, nodded once, and walked out through the automatic doors into the gray morning light, leaving Maya standing there, $3 lighter, and completely unaware of what she had just set into motion. Because across the parking lot, tucked behind the tinted windows of a black sedan idling near the curb, someone had been watching. And what Maya didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that a single manager's report about an employee interfering with a customer transaction was already being typed up in the back office. By tomorrow morning, that report would cost Maya her job. By tomorrow evening, it would cost her far more than that. The break room smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. Maya sat across from Gary, her hands folded in her lap, trying to keep them from shaking. On the desk between them was a single sheet of paper with a company letterhead she'd only ever seen on paychecks. "Maya, do you know why you're here?" Gary asked, not looking up from the paper. "The bread," she said quietly. "The bread." He finally lifted his eyes to meet hers. "You interfered with a customer transaction. You inserted yourself into a situation that was none of your business. You used your position as an employee to override a management decision." He slid the paper across the desk. "This is a notice of indefinite suspension, effective immediately." Maya stared at the words until they blurred together. "What? You violated company policy." Gary continued, his voice flat, rehearsed, like he'd said this exact sentence to someone else before. "Employees do not interfere with cashier operations. Employees do not create scenes that distract from the shopping experience. Employees do not—" Grandstand, Maya's voice cracked, disbelief rising into something sharper. "Gary." That woman was humiliated. She was about to be escorted out by security for forgetting her wallet. "I bought her a loaf of bread. That's not grandstanding. That's being human." Gary sighed. And for a moment, something almost like guilt passed across his face. Being human is not in the employee handbook. He rubbed his temple. "I'm sorry. Maya, I like you. You're a good worker. But the rules are the rules. Please." Maya's composure cracked further, and she hated herself a little for it. "My mother, she needs her medication tonight. If I lose this job, I don't know how will. The decision is final," Gary said, cutting her off, though he couldn't quite hold her gaze while he said it. "You can pick up your final check on Friday." Maya walked out of that break room in a kind of fog. She didn't remember untying her apron, or clocking out for the last time, or walking past the registers where, just yesterday, an old woman had looked at her like she'd hung the moon. Outside, the parking lot lights were flickering on against the darkening sky. Maya sat down on the curb, pulled out her phone, and did the math she already knew the answer to. Rent was due in 9 days. Her mother's prescription needed refilling by tonight. And her final paycheck, the one Gary mentioned so casually, wouldn't even cover half of either. For the first time since she was 17 years old, Maya let herself cry in public. Not loudly, just quietly, her shoulders shaking, her forehead resting against her knees. She thought about the $3, replayed the moment over and over, searching for the version of herself that would have just kept walking, kept mopping, minded her own business. Was that a mistake, she asked herself? Was kindness actually a mistake? She didn't have an answer. All she had was an empty wallet, an empty apartment waiting for her. and a mother who was going to ask how her day went, and Maya would have to decide, right then, whether to tell her the truth. By the time she got home, her mother, Rosa, was already sitting up on the couch, a blanket over her knees, the television playing low. "You're home early," Rosa said, smiling before she noticed her daughter's face. Then the smile faded. "Mia, what happened?" Maya opened her mouth to explain, and instead, everything came out at once. The old woman, the register, the $3, Gary's voice reciting policy like a robot, the notice of suspension folded up in her bag like a piece of evidence against her own character. Rosa listened without interrupting. When Maya finished, her mother reached over, took her hand, and held it the exact same way the old woman at the store had. "You did the right thing," Rosa said softly, "even if the world doesn't reward you for it tonight." Maya wanted to believe her, but lying in bed that night, staring at the water stain spreading across her ceiling, she wasn't so sure the world worked that way at all. Her phone buzzed once on the nightstand. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "Is this Maya Reyes? I have something important to discuss with you. Please call when you're able. M. Whitfield. Whitfield Holdings." Maya stared at the screen for a long moment, her exhausted mind refusing to make sense of it. She had no idea that the ordinary, terrible day she'd just lived through was about to become the last ordinary day of her life. The Whitfield estate sat behind iron gates on the edge of the city. The kind of house that made you lower your voice the moment you stepped through the front door. Margaret Whitfield sat in her study, still wearing the same coat she'd worn to the grocery store that morning, staring at nothing in particular. There was a soft knock. "Mom, may I come in, of course?" Diane, her daughter, stepped inside, still dressed for the office, though it was well past 6. "How was your morning?" Marcus said. "You asked him to cancel your 10 o'clock. "I had an interesting experience at the grocery store," Margaret said, setting down the cup of tea she hadn't touched. "I forgot my wallet." Diane blinked. "You forgot your wallet, Mom? You haven't carried cash in 20 years. "Which store?" "I'll have someone." A young woman stepped in. Margaret continued, as though her daughter hadn't spoken. "A janitor." She had $3 in her pocket. Her last $3, I suspect, and she used them to buy my bread. Diane sat down slowly across from her mother. When I asked her why, Margaret went on, her voice growing quieter, almost reverent. She said, "I know you're hungry." She didn't know who I was. She didn't know who you were. She just saw an old woman in trouble and decided to help. "What's her name?" "Maya." "Maya Reyes." Margaret finally looked up, and there were tears in her eyes that hadn't been there a moment ago. "Victoria Diane. I want to find her. I want to thank her properly." "Mom, I know what you're going to say," Diane said carefully. "You're going to say I should write a check and be done with it." "That's not what this is about." Margaret's voice sharpened, the softness replaced with something firmer, something Diane hadn't heard in years. "That girl spent her last $3 on a stranger. Do you understand what that means? It means she was hungry too. It means she probably needed that money for something essential, and she gave it away anyway, without hesitation, without expectation." Diane was quiet for a moment. She'd rarely seen her mother this, shaken by anything not boardroom failures. Not the death of her father. Not even the years of lawsuits after the company's early struggles. "You know," Margaret said, almost to herself. "There was a winter, a long time ago." Before any of this, she gestured vaguely at the room. The house. The life they now lived. When your grandmother and I stood in a line very much like that one, waiting for a church to hand out bread that never quite lasted long enough for everyone in line. I remember a woman ahead of us gave up her portion so a child behind her could eat. I never forgot her face. I never even learned her name. Diane had never heard this story before. Not once. In 34 years, I always wondered what happened to her. Margaret continued. Whether she made it through that winter, whether anyone ever repaid her kindness the way she deserved. She looked at her daughter. I don't intend to let that happen again. Not this time. Not while I have the ability to do something about it. I'll find her, Diane said finally, already reaching for her phone. Marcus, I need you to arrange something, she said into the receiver. A meeting. Tomorrow. And Marcus, have the car ready. We're going to Pilsen. The apartment building was exactly the kind of place Diane rarely had reason to visit. Narrow hallways, flickering hall lights, the smell of someone else's dinner drifting under every door. She knocked twice. The door opened just a crack. And there she was, the same young woman from the grocery store, though this time her eyes were red-rimmed, tired in a way that went deeper than a single bad day. Maya, Margaret said, stepping forward before Diane could speak. Thank God we found you. Maya's grip on the door tightened. I don't understand. I'm Margaret Whitfield, the old woman said gently, and this is my daughter, Diane. I believe you've heard of her. Maya's face went pale as recognition slowly settled in the name on the news, the name on the side of half the buildings downtown. I just bought you bread, she said, barely above a whisper. That's all. Just bread. Margaret's eyes softened, and for the first time all day, she smiled. Yes, she said, and that bread was the most expensive meal anyone has ever bought me, because it cost you everything you had. Come inside, Margaret said. Please, come inside. Maya hesitated at the doorway, glancing back into her apartment, the peeling wallpaper, her mother's oxygen machine humming softly from the bedroom, the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter that she'd been avoiding looking at all evening. It felt wrong. Somehow, letting two of the wealthiest women in the city see all of that. But Margaret was already stepping past her, settling onto the worn couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maya, Margaret said once they were all seated, I understand you were suspended from your job. Fired. Actually, Maya said quietly, for helping my mother. Margaret's eyebrows lifted slightly. Your mother, not you, Maya clarified quickly, a flush rising in her cheeks. I mean, I didn't do it because you were somebody's mother. I did it because you reminded me of my own mother. Sick, tired, humiliated over something so small. She looked down at her hands. I didn't even know you had a daughter until she walked in with you just now. I know, Margaret said softly. That's exactly why I'm here. She reached into her coat pocket and withdrew a small folded card, sliding it across the coffee table toward Maya. We are pleased to offer you the position of management trainee, Margaret said, under the executive development program at Whitfield Holdings. Maya stared at the card without touching it, as if it might disappear the moment her fingers made contact. This is a mistake, she said finally. No mistake. I don't have corporate experience. Maya's voice rose slightly, panic creeping in where gratitude probably should have been. I haven't worked in an office since my internship in college. I've been a janitor for 2 years. This doesn't make sense. People don't just, she gestured helplessly between them, get handed something like this. Skills can be taught. Maya, Margaret said, leaning forward. But integrity, the kind of integrity that makes a person spend her last $3 on a stranger that can't be taught. That's either in you, or it isn't. Maya shook her head slowly, and something in the movement betrayed more than doubt. It looked almost like fear. You don't know anything about me. I could disappoint you. I could fail completely. And then what, you'd have wasted this. This whole gesture on someone who wasn't worth it. May I tell you something, Margaret asked. Maya nodded. and Margaret's expression grew distant, as though she were looking somewhere far beyond the small apartment. "A long time ago, before any of this," she said, gesturing vaguely at herself. "I stood in a breadline with my mother. Winter. Freezing. There was never quite enough to go around. And a woman ahead of us, a stranger, someone I never even learned the name of, gave up her own portion, so a child behind her could eat." Margaret's eyes glistened. "I never forgot her face. For 60 years, I have wondered what happened to her. Whether life was ever kind to her the way she was kind to us." She reached out and took Maya's hand. "I am not offering you charity, Maya. I am offering you what I wish someone had been able to offer that woman all those years ago. A door. What you do once you walk through it is entirely up to you." Maya's throat tightened. She glanced toward the hallway, where her mother had appeared, quietly leaning against the doorframe. "Listening. Mia," Rosa said softly, "take the door." Maya looked back at Margaret, then at the small card, still sitting untouched on the table between them. Slowly, she picked it up, running her thumb across the embossed letters of the company name. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Yes," Margaret said, a small smile breaking through. "Give yourself the chance you never got," Diane added quietly, speaking for the first time in several minutes. Maya closed her eyes, feeling something shift inside her chest. Not confidence. Not yet. But something close to it. A willingness. At least. "Totre." "Yes," she said finally, opening her eyes. "Yes. Thank you. I'll do everything I can to prove you didn't make a mistake," Maya added, her voice steadier now. Margaret squeezed her hand once more before rising to leave. "I know you will." At the door, she paused and turned back. "Orientation is Monday, 8 a.m. sharp." And then, just like that, the two women were gone, their car pulling away from the curb outside, leaving Maya standing in her doorway holding a small card that felt, impossibly, like it might be the first page of an entirely different life. The elevator doors slid open onto the 40th floor. And for a moment, Maya simply stood there, unable to make her feet move. Marble floors stretched out in front of her, polished to a mirror shine. Glass walls, the quiet hum of 100 quiet conversations happening just out of earshot. Everything smelled faintly of fresh coffee and expensive carpet cleaner, a smell she associated with buildings she used to clean. Never buildings she was meant to walk into as an employee. "Good morning, Miss Reyes." A young receptionist looked up, offering a polite, practiced smile. "You're expected in conference room A. Elevator bank to your left." Maya nodded, tightening her grip on the strap of her second-hand bag, suddenly aware of how out of place it looked against everyone else's leather briefcases. Conference room A was already half full by the time she arrived. A dozen other trainees, all considerably younger, all dressed in the kind of clothes that whispered old money or new ambition. Conversations died down slightly as she took her seat, replaced by the particular silence of people trying very hard not to stare. A tall man in his late 30s strode in moments later, dropping a folder onto the table at the head of the room. "All right, settle down." He glanced briefly at a printed roster in his hand. "Maya Reyes." "Here," Maya said. He looked up properly for the first time, studying her for a beat too long. "Your background says UIC, Business Administration, and the last 2 years you worked as..." He squinted at the page. "A janitor. At Harvest Market." A few quiet snickers rippled through the room. "A janitor," he repeated, almost amused. "How did you even get into this program?" Maya felt her face go warm. But before she could answer, the door opened again, and every head in the room turned. Diane Whitfield walked in, unhurried, radiating the kind of calm authority that made rooms rearrange themselves around her without a word. "Sit down," Diane said, though nobody had actually stood. "I'm not here to give a speech. I'm here to answer a question." She let her gaze sweep across the room. "Several of you have asked how Maya Reyes was selected for this program. Some of you have speculated. A few of you have complained to HR." The room went very still. "So let me be clear," Diane continued. "Maya was selected because she demonstrated something that none of your resumes, your GPAs, or your internships can prove. She demonstrated character." She paused, letting the words settle. A little over a week ago, Maya spent her last $3 to buy bread for a stranger. She did it without knowing who that stranger was. She did it without expecting anything in return. And when her employer punished her for that act of kindness, she didn't complain. She didn't sue. She accepted the consequences with dignity. Diane's eyes moved slowly across each face in the room. "In this company, we do not measure people by their pedigree. We measure them by their choices. And Maya Reyes made a choice that tells me everything I need to know about the kind of person she is." She let the silence stretch a moment longer. "If anyone has a problem with her presence here, my door is open. But I'd suggest spending less time worrying about how she got here, and more time proving that you deserve to be here yourselves." With that, Diane turned and walked out, leaving behind a room that suddenly found other things to look at besides Maya. The trainer cleared his throat, shuffling his papers with slightly less confidence than before. "Right. Let's get started." Then, at the back of the room, a man named Nathan sat with his arms crossed, watching the exchange with careful, unreadable eyes. He'd worked at Whitfield Holdings for 8 years through 2 rounds of layoffs, 3 department reorganizations, and 1 promotion he'd been passed over for just last spring. He didn't say anything during the meeting. He didn't need to. But that evening, long after the trainees had filed out and the office had emptied into its usual after-hours quiet, Nathan remained at his desk, scrolling back through Maya's personnel file with a kind of quiet, deliberate attention. Zero corporate experience, he thought, and somehow she's already the one everyone's talking about. He didn't know yet how far Maya was about to rise. He only knew, with the kind of certainty that curdles slowly into resentment, that he intended to be watching every step of the way. 6 months had passed since Maya walked through the doors of Whitfield Holdings for the first time. Though most days it still felt like borrowed time, like she was waiting for someone to realize the mistake and ask for the badge back. She'd learned quickly, worked harder than anyone in her cohort, and earned something she hadn't expected: real respect. Not from everyone, but from enough people that it mattered. Nathan wasn't one of them. He'd been with the company 8 years, watched 2 promotions pass him by, and told himself each time that his turn was coming. Then Maya arrived, a former janitor. No MBA, no pedigree, and somehow ended up leading the biggest proposal of the year. The Kowalski Trust deal, a partnership worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and the kind of project that made careers. Nathan told himself it wasn't personal. It rarely stayed that way. The morning of the presentation, Maya sat in the boardroom, review room 40 minutes early, running through her notes one final time. Everything had to be perfect. The Kowalski family had flown in from overseas, specifically for this meeting, and Margaret had made it clear gently, but clearly, that this project mattered as much to the company's reputation as it did to its bottom line. At 9 sharp, the room filled. Diane sat near the head of the table. The Kowalski representatives took their seats across from Maya, polite smiles fixed in place. Maya stood, clicked to her first slide, and began. 3 minutes in, something felt wrong. The numbers on the screen behind her didn't match the numbers she remembered approving the night before. A projected revenue figure, inflated. A community investment percentage, quietly shrunk. Small enough that most people in the room wouldn't notice. Large enough that, if caught later, it would destroy every ounce of trust she'd built. Maya's mouth went dry. She kept talking, buying herself time, her mind racing through every possible explanation. A formatting error, a miscommunication with the finance team, or something else entirely. She reached the fourth slide and stopped. "I need to apologize," she said, her voice steady despite the tightening in her chest. The room went silent. Diane's eyebrows rose slightly. "There are errors in these financial projections. They don't match the figures I approved." One of the Kowalski representatives leaned forward. "Miss Reyes, are you saying someone altered your presentation?" "I'm saying these are not the numbers I prepared," Maya said carefully. She could feel her career balancing on the edge of this single sentence. "I made a promise to this company and to this project that I would operate with complete transparency. I will not break that promise because it's inconvenient." She took a breath. "If you'll give us 48 hours, I will present the correct figures. And if those figures aren't satisfactory, I will accept full responsibility." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Diane's expression was unreadable, and across the room, Maya caught sight of Nathan sitting near the back, his eyes fixed very deliberately on his notepad. Finally, the lead Kowalski representative spoke, his voice measured. "Miss Reyes, in 20 years of evaluating proposals, I have never seen a presenter stop their own presentation because of an honesty concern." He glanced at his colleagues. "Most companies would have continued. They would have hoped we wouldn't notice. I couldn't do that." Maya said simply, "I know." He allowed himself a small, surprised smile. "And that is precisely why we want to work with you." Diane exhaled slowly, some of the tension leaving her shoulders, though her eyes stayed sharp, already calculating who had touched those numbers. "And why? We don't need 48 hours. The representative continued. "We need you." "Thank you," Maya said, relief and adrenaline crashing through her at once. "But I still need to find out what happened to my presentation." After the room cleared, Diane lingered by the door, watching Maya gather her laptop with hands that had only just stopped shaking. "That took courage," Diane said quietly. "It wasn't courage," Maya replied. "I just couldn't live with the alternative." Diane nodded slowly, filing that answer away. "I'm going to find out who did this." Maya looked up. "I have a guess." Across the office, through the glass wall of the review room, Nathan sat very still at his desk, staring at nothing, a knot tightening in his stomach that had nothing to do with the coffee he hadn't finished. He told himself, again, that it wasn't personal. He was starting to have a much harder time believing it. Maya found Nathan alone in the small break room on the 38th floor. Long after most of the office had gone home, he sat with his back to the door, a cold cup of coffee in front of him, staring at nothing. Nathan. He didn't turn around right away. When he finally did, his face had none of the sharpness she'd expected, no anger, no defiance, just a kind of tired defeat that made him look older than she remembered. "Diane already talked to me," he said quietly. "I assume you know." "I know," Maya said. She pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, uninvited but unhesitant. Nathan let out a short, humorless laugh. "Go ahead. Say what you came to say." "Why?" Maya asked. And the question was simple, almost gentle. "I never did anything to you." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, turning his coffee cup slowly on the table. "I was jealous," he finally admitted, the words coming out rough, like they cost him something to say. "I've worked here for 8 years. 8 years of late nights, missed birthdays, weekends I gave up without complaining. And you," he looked up at her, "you walk in with nothing. and get everything I ever wanted. I didn't take anything from you. Nathan, you took her attention, he said, his voice rising slightly before he caught himself. You took the projects that should have been mine. You took my future. No, Maya said, steady but not unkind. You gave it away. The moment you decided to sabotage me instead of supporting me. The moment you let jealousy matter more than your own integrity. Nathan flinched at that, but didn't argue. He looked down at his hands instead, and for the first time, Maya noticed how tired they looked, the hands of someone who'd been running on fear for a very long time. You haven't eaten, she said suddenly, changing course. I can tell. Nathan blinked, caught off guard by the shift. What you've got, that look. Maya said, I used to see it in the mirror. Somebody running on empty, telling themselves they're fine. Why are you being kind to me? Nathan asked, his voice cracking slightly. Confusion and something like shame tangled together. After what I did, Maya considered the question carefully before answering. Because kindness isn't something you earn, she said. It's something you choose. And because I know what it feels like to be so afraid of losing something, that you stop being the person you actually want to be. Nathan looked away, his jaw tightening, and for a moment Maya thought he might simply get up and leave. Instead, he stayed. Diane's going to fire me, he said quietly. Isn't she? I don't know. Maya said honestly, that's her decision. But I asked her for something. Before I came down here, Nathan looked up. Vare, I asked her to give you one more project. Maya said. Small, nothing high profile, but real. Something you'd have to build. Start to finish. On your own name, no shortcuts. No sabotage. If you do it right, it's proof you still belong here. If you don't, she paused, choosing her words carefully, then that's a decision you'll have made yourself. Not one I made for you. Nathan stared at her, clearly unprepared for this. Why would you do that, after everything? Because somebody once gave me a door I didn't think I deserved, Maya said simply, and I'm not in the business of deciding who else deserves one. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. Then Nathan let out a slow breath, something in his shoulders finally loosening. Like he'd been holding a weight he didn't know how to put down until just now. I don't know if I can fix what I did, he said quietly. You can't. Maya agreed. Not the trust part. That takes time, if it comes back at all. But you can decide what kind of person you're going to be starting tomorrow morning. Nathan nodded slowly, and for the first time since she'd walked in, he met her eyes directly. Thank you, he said. I don't think I deserve this chance. Maybe not, Maya said, standing to leave. But you're getting it anyway. What you do with it is up to you. She left him sitting there in the empty break room, the cold coffee still untouched in front of him. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Nathan allowed himself to believe that 8 years of resentment didn't have to define whatever came next. Time has a strange way of folding in on itself when you're too busy living to notice it passing. For Maya, the months blurred together in a rhythm of early mornings, late nights, and small victories that slowly stopped feeling like flukes and started feeling like proof. The Kowalski trust deal closed within the year, and with it came something Maya hadn't expected, not just recognition, but responsibility. Margaret called her into the office one afternoon, sunlight cutting sharp lines across the polished desk between them. I want to create a new division, Margaret said. Community development and social impact. It would oversee every project we undertake, ensuring our business practices align with our ethical commitments. She paused. I want you to lead it. Maya felt the old voice rise up before she could stop it, the janitor who never quite believed she belonged. That's a director-level position, she said carefully. I've only been with the company a year. And in that year, Margaret said, you've accomplished more than most people manage in a decade. She leaned forward. I'm not offering you charity, Maya. I'm offering you a job you're uniquely qualified to do. You understand communities in a way no MBA can teach. You've lived the struggles our projects are meant to address. Maya sat with that for a long moment, feeling the same vertigo she'd felt the first time she'd stepped off the elevator onto the 40th floor. When I was a janitor, she finally said, I used to imagine what it would be like to work in an office like this, to wear nice clothes, to make important decisions. She let out a breath. And now I'm terrified someone's going to wake me up and tell me it was all a dream. It's not a dream, Margaret said gently. But even if it were, dreams are just practice for reality. And you're ready. The vote for her appointment came back nearly unanimous. Nearly. One abstention, a senior board member who had once mentored Nathan, and still couldn't quite bring himself to endorse the woman who'd replaced him in every meaningful way. But even he couldn't deny what Maya had built. That evening, Maya sat across from her mother at their small kitchen table, a different table now, in a different home. Though the ritual of dinner together hadn't changed at all. Your father would have been so proud, Rosa said quietly. He would have said I worked too hard. Maya said, smiling. He would have been right. Rosa reached across the table and squeezed her hand. But he also would have said, remember where you came from. Remember the people who helped you. And never, ever think you did this alone. I won't. Mama, Maya said. I promise. The deed came a few weeks later. Slid quietly across a table by Margaret herself. I don't understand, Maya said, staring at the paperwork. It's yours, Margaret said. Bought and paid for. The deed is in your name. And your mother's. She smiled faintly. It's not a mansion. It's not fancy. But it's yours. No landlord. New rent. No fear of eviction. Just home. I can't accept this, Maya said, pushing the papers back gently. It's too much. It's not charity, Margaret said. It's investment. You invested in me when I needed it most. Now I'm investing in you. Her voice softened. A year ago, you gave me your last $3. Today, I'm giving you a home. Not because I have to, because you earned it. Not with work. Not with achievement. You earned it by being the kind of person who gives her last $3 to a stranger. That person deserves a home. Word of Maya's story spread slowly at first. Then all at once, a janitor turned director. A company built on integrity instead of pedigree. Within a year, she'd become one of the most recognized faces in American real estate development. Not because of her title, because of what she represented, a story people wanted to believe was still possible. She never stopped visiting the buildings her division worked in. Never stopped talking to the cleaning staff. Remembering their names. Asking about their families. Miss Reyes. One of them asked her once, Mopinhunt, clearly unsure whether it was appropriate to speak at all. Why are you so nice? You're famous now. You could just send money and stay home. Maya smiled, the question landing somewhere familiar and warm. Because someone once believed in me when I had nothing, she said, and it changed my life. I want to do the same for someone else. Not because I have to. She paused. Because I can. Behind her, waiting patiently by the elevator. Margaret watched the exchange with quiet satisfaction, the particular satisfaction of someone who had planted a seed years ago, and was now watching it grow into something far bigger than she'd ever imagined. There was one more surprise waiting for Maya, and neither of them knew yet just how far this story still had left to go. 5 years after that ordinary Tuesday morning, Maya stood on a small stage in a room full of people who once wouldn't have looked at her twice. A little over 5 years ago, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor underneath it. I was mopping floors at a grocery store. I had $3 in my pocket, a sick mother at home, and a dream that had been beaten down by 2 years of rejection. She paused, letting the room settle into silence. And then an old woman forgot her wallet, and I had a choice. I could keep my $3 and let her be humiliated, or I could give them away and trust that somehow everything would be okay. I chose to give them away, not because I'm a good person, not because I'm special, but because at that moment, it was the only thing I could do and still live with myself. She looked out at the crowd, finding Margaret's eyes near the front row. I don't stand here tonight as proof that good deeds are always rewarded. They're not. I stand here as proof that goodness is its own reward, that helping someone, even when you have almost nothing yourself, is what makes us human. Her voice rose, steady and sure. Don't wait until you have enough to be kind. You'll never have enough. Give your $3. Give your time. Give whatever you have, and trust that it will find its way back to you. Not always the way you expect, but it will. The room rose to its feet. If this story moved you even a little, hit subscribe so you never miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, what's the smallest act of kindness you've ever given or received that changed everything?